The SAT is not a test of intelligence, it's really just a test of endurance and aptitude. Namaste everyone, this is Avanti, and today we're going to be talking about the SAT. SAT stands for Scholastic Assessment Test, and it used to be called the Scholastic Aptitude Test. Just for clarification, I took the SAT before 2016. In 2016, it changed to being out of 1,600 marks as opposed to 2,400. When I took the SAT, it was all out of 2,400, and I scored a 2370 out of 2,400. I also scored 800 on 800 in both my subject tests. So a very quick brief, we're just going to go through the 5 W's plus H of exactly who, what, when, where, why, and how is the SAT. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the best books, best practices, how to create a study plan, and I would love to answer any questions you have in the comments below. Who should take the SAT? The SAT should be taken by anybody who is interested in applying to the US or Canada for college. Not every college requires it, but a lot of colleges require the SAT or the ACT, which is an alternative option. I personally took the SAT, so I will be talking about it in this video, but if you want a video about the ACT, let me know and I can try and get a friend on or do a little bit of research and share information about that. Here's a link of all the colleges in the US updated in 2020 that take the SAT as a part of their admissions process, and I will also link it here down below. So what exactly is the SAT? The SAT, as you can tell from the name, is a standardized test. It basically tests your aptitude for English, both in terms of writing and critical reading, as well as basic high school level math. What it is not is a test of intelligence. The SAT is not a test of intelligence, it's really just a test of endurance and aptitude. What I mean by that is the more you practice and the more you familiarize yourself with the test itself, the better chance you'll have at doing it. So it doesn't measure how smart you are or even how academically gifted you are. Honestly, it just really measures how well you can take a test. When should you take the SAT? Ideally, you should take it either in your 10th or 11th standard or even in your 12th standard. The reason I suggest taking it earlier is because by the 10th standard, by the time you finish your board exams, you have enough of a math background to be able to handle most of the questions on the test. And in addition, if you take it once and you feel like you need another try or you feel like you can do better, you can always take it again. So in my opinion, the earlier you can finish off the testing, the better, but it's totally fine if you have to wait till the 12th standard to take it as well. It's just about getting it done and doing it well. Where should you take the SAT? Usually in a lot of different countries, they have testing centers. I'm going to include a link here of all the testing centers in India. Most of them are at high schools in several different cities. Now, of course, this year, because of COVID, many of the colleges have become SAT optional because it's hard to get to a center or to take the test. So why should you take the SAT? SAT versus ACT. I knew that I had a little bit of a stronger aptitude for English, so I decided to take the SAT as opposed to the ACT. It was also more common in my time, so that's why I decided. Often people who feel like they're a little bit better at STEM opt for the ACT, and people who feel like they're a little bit better at English or reading or writing or comprehension opt for the SAT. Why do colleges ask you to take it? It's because if you imagine, I was ICSC and ISC board. You may be SSC or state board, somebody else may be IB, somebody else may be coming from Malaysia. So they still need some metric to compare all of these systems. And so the SAT becomes this universal common metric that these colleges have to kind of have as a quick determiner of whether you have a basic aptitude. Again, it's not a test of intelligence, it just checks whether you tick off the boxes of this basic aptitude test. How should you take the SAT? Okay, so in order to register for the SAT, you need to make sure that you go to College Board's website. College Board is a global accredited website, and that's what administers the SAT as well. Go to College Board's website, create a College Board profile, fill out the application form. At the end of the application form, you can also choose your testing center and testing date. Here is a list of all the testing dates that are currently available in India as of 2020 and 2021. Usually in the US, they happen every month, and in international locations, they happen about 5 times a year. So you should try and plan ahead so that you are registered well enough in advance to take the test. So once you've registered for your testing center and your date, you at the end have to pay the application fee. Now, the application fee along with the basic fee and international fee together is about $117, I believe, which is on the expensive side. They do allow fee waivers for US citizens and people in very, very special circumstances, so you can write to the college board or talk to your college counselor in school if you feel like you still need the assistance. There's different ways. It's unfortunate that it's not fee waived across the board, but they kind of have to do that to be able to maintain all the testing centers. Okay, so now that we have all of that out of the way, let's talk about the test itself. The test has 3 sections to it. It has a writing section, a critical reading section, and a math section. The writing section comprises 2 components: optional essay, and it's a bunch of questions that are all multiple choice, around 44 questions that are testing your grammar, writing skills, and a little bit of your vocabulary. The second section is the critical reading section, and the critical reading section is basically testing your reading comprehension. They have some sentence completions, and they also have paragraph level critical analysis. So it's testing how well you absorb material, but not just rectify it. It tests how well you really understand the material. So I think actually for a lot of Indian students, there is a little bit of a disadvantage because हमारे education system में they don't emphasize the importance of critical thinking when it comes to English. So definitely pay a little bit more attention to this section when you're preparing for the SAT. Also, the critical reading section has about 52 multiple choice questions. The math section is about 57 questions, and there's 2 sections. The first section is a no calculator section, and the second section is a calculator section. So for the first section, they won't allow you to take out your calculators, but for the second one, they will. It's just because they're trying to test different aptitudes in math. So the questions are usually around algebra and functions, geometry and statistics, and probability and data analysis. Usually most board exam portions will cover that, but if you feel like you need a little bit more extra assistance, of course, definitely use the prep books, which I will talk about very soon. So the structure of the test has these 3 components, and some of the sections repeat, and it's about a 3-hour long test. So as you can imagine, it's not easy to stay focused for those 3 hours plus the essay section. So a lot of it is just practicing the endurance of the test. In my opinion, before taking any exam, whether it's अगर आप school exam ले रहे हो, then you probably have some sort of study plan, which means you're taking tests before in school and all of that. So you should have a study plan for the SAT. In my opinion, it should look a little bit like this. First step, take a diagnostic test. There's enough tests available on the internet. You can just download one for free, and there usually will be an answer key also available on the internet. Just take it. Don't cheat. Take the exam and see how well you do without doing any preparation before. Based on that, you'll understand which section is your strong point and which section is your weak point and what you have to work on. Second, after doing the diagnostic test, I would recommend that you take some books to prepare for the SAT. The official guide for the SAT is this big fat book that really helps. It has 10 practice tests, and it gives you a really general sense of how the test is structured. I would recommend definitely buying that. And then for each section, there are also section-specific books. The books that I used were Barron's, which I think is excellent for general preparation, and you can get both the Barron's holistic book as well as one specifically for writing, reading, and math. I also used Kaplan and McGraw-Hill. And I've heard really good things for this new version about 2 other books. There's the Black Book, and there's also the Specific Subject books by Erica Meltzer. Now, you don't need all of these books to prepare. You can choose whichever one and look at your strength areas. For me, I needed to work a little bit more in the math section. English came more naturally to me. But my younger brother, for example, he needed a little bit more help on the English side, so he worked a little harder on the English. So it just really depends on what you need for your strengths. For the preparation and the study part, a lot of it is your schoolwork and a lot of it is this. But more than studying for the SAT, it really is important to practice the SAT. So let's say you're taking the SAT in December and we're almost nearing October. I would recommend starting now in October because you can spend all of October really understanding the test, doing a couple diagnostic tests, looking at the sections, studying it, and really getting a hold on the type of material. But you spend most of October, November, basically, in my opinion, 4 to 6 weeks or more if you can do it, just taking as many practice tests as you can. Even more importantly, when you take the practice tests, try your best to simulate the actual testing conditions, because it's very different when you're sitting on your bed and getting distracted and when you have to take an exam for 3 hours straight. So the official guide has a lot of tests. All of the books I mentioned have a lot of tests. Khan Academy also has a lot of tests, and I'll be sharing all those resources down below as well. So I would map it out. Let's say for 6 weeks straight, every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday, try to take it in the morning, which is when you'll have the actual test as well. Try to take it in the morning for those 3 hours, and you can request a parent or a sibling to help time you and come and be the exam proctor. Or you can do it yourself. I used to set alarms on my phone and just, do the tests repeatedly. Probably took around 20 practice tests before doing the exam. I know that sounds like a lot, but once I'd done those, then I felt so ready, because there aren't that many questions they can ask. There's basically, it's once you get used to this pattern, you'll get used to how to answer the test as well. If you want, I can make a video on solving some of the most common types of questions on the SAT. Agar aapko wo chahiye, let me know in the comments below. I can also make a video on what to do for the day of the test. So the last two things I want to talk about are the SAT subject tests and the PSAT. So the SAT subject tests are basically supplementary tests that you have to take in addition to the SAT when you're applying to most colleges. Not every college wants this, so you just have to base it on your list, but a lot of the top colleges like Harvard or any of these other competitive schools require both the SAT and at least 2 SAT subject tests, because they want to see aptitude in your general math and English reasoning, but also some subjects. So I personally took the Math 2 exam and the biology exam, and I can make a video on that separately if you want. But essentially there are specific books. I think the one that I referred to the most was Barron's for preparation for both of them. And again, same process. I did practice tests as much as I could and then took them. The only catch is you cannot take the SAT main exam and the SAT subject tests on the same day. So if you have just 1 year and 5 testing dates, you have to just be really, really solid about your planning. I took the SAT first, and then a few months later, I took both my SAT subject tests on the same date so that I had the options and I was well prepared enough in advance. One of the benefits to the ACT that people see is that you don't have to take the subject tests, but the ACT is also longer, a little bit more complex. So honestly, it just depends on you. And once you look at both tests, I would recommend potentially taking a diagnostic test for either one. Take both the SAT and the ACT, and then you personally can decide which one's better for you. PSAT is basically almost like pre-SAT. It is a good practice test. It's much smaller, the questions are much smaller, but it's good practice for you. You can take that as early as the 8th standard, 9th standard, whenever you want to take it. If you are a US citizen, if you take it in the 11th grade, and if you score well, you can also qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. I was a National Merit Scholar, and if you have questions about that, let me know. But unfortunately, if you are not a US citizen, you don't qualify for that. But it's still really good practice, so if you have the opportunity to take it, I would really recommend it. So all in all, I hope this was helpful in just a general gist of the SATs. Let me know if you want me to make a video solving some practice questions, some tips for exam day, or anything else, comparing SAT versus ACT or any of these things. But the biggest thing to remember is it's all about practice. It's all about how much you can practice, how much you can endure, and it's really not a test of your intelligence, but it's really just a test of how much you can get yourself to do that. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. I will try my best to answer them. Or if you want any other resources, I've linked a few below. And thank you, as always, so much for watching and for being a part of this app. I'll see you soon.